All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are diving into something pretty wild. A stunning report that lays out an alleged covert U.S. military operation right in the heart of Venezuela.
So, let's set the scene. We're in Caracas, Venezuela. This is the capital, the seat of power for a government that's reportedly about to find itself completely under siege. And we're not talking about a civil uprising here. This is something else entirely, an external force acting in the dead of night.
And get this, the report we're breaking down pinpoints the exact moment an order is given, 10:46 p.m. That's it. A single command that, according to this source, would plunge an entire nation into chaos on what was, until that very second, just a totally normal night.
And then, bam, the power grid just fails. The entire city is plunged into an engineered darkness. The document we're looking at claims the lights were turned off with what it calls a special skill. I mean, how chilling is that? A very technical, very clean term for a citywide blackout that was really just the opening move. So, what exactly went down in those chaotic hours? Well, the report describes this multi-pronged assault that started from the sky. It was, by all accounts, a meticulously planned attack with one single, incredibly audacious goal: capture a sitting head of state and just remove him from power.
Okay, so the first wave of this thing, as laid out in the report, was a massive air campaign. They were targeting critical infrastructure, stuff like the La Carlota Air Base, and the goal was simple but absolutely devastating: paralyze the city's defenses before a single soldier's boot even touched the ground in Caracas. But here's the thing. This chaos on the ground, it wasn't random. Not at all. It was apparently the grand finale of a plan that had been in the works for months. So to really understand how a night like this could even happen, we've got to rewind and look at the secret planning that allegedly led right to this moment. And the report actually gives this alleged mission a name: Operation Absolute Resolve. Now, this was a plan so secret, it was reportedly kept completely hidden from the U.S. Congress. I mean, think about that. It bypassed the very oversight designed to check this kind of executive power, justified, apparently, only at the absolute highest levels of command. So, the foundation of this whole plan was what the source calls total monitoring. The idea was to build a complete pattern of life profile on the Venezuelan president. We're talking about knowing not just where he was, but being able to predict where he would be. This intelligence, supposedly boosted by a high-level source inside the Venezuelan government, was the absolute key to making a raid like this even remotely possible. And wow, this slide really breaks down just how methodical the preparation was. I mean, this was not improvised. Just look at the progression here. It goes from months of surveillance to getting an inside source, and then, get this, physically rehearsing the raid on a full-scale replica of the safe house. Every single move was apparently timed down to the second. And the final piece of the puzzle? Presidential approval, which the report claims came just 4 days before the mission was supposed to kick off. All right, so the planning is done, the city is dark, and now the operation enters its most critical phase. Let's get into the execution of the raid itself, because the source describes something like a modern-day fortress under siege. The scale of this air assault, at least as it's detailed in the report, is just immense. We're talking over 150 aircraft. Bombers, fighters, surveillance planes, the works. And they weren't just there to hit targets. No. They were deployed to create that overwhelming shock and awe effect, to sow so much confusion that no organized Venezuelan military response could ever even get off the ground. And this timeline, it just shows how incredibly fast this all unfolded. Just look at those timestamps. You go from the final order at 10:46 p.m. to the alleged extraction at 4:20 a.m. That's less than 6 hours. 6 hours to launch a massive air assault, conduct a ground raid, and secure the target. Speed was absolutely everything. It was a critical part of the plan, designed to make sure there was no time for any real resistance. So who's leading the charge on the ground? The elite Delta Force. And the report points out this really fascinating detail about their gear. They were carrying a blowtorch. Yeah, a blowtorch. They were literally prepared to cut through solid steel because they fully expected that Maduro's safe house was exactly what the intelligence said it was: a fortress. This quote right here really captures the raw speed of that assault. Apparently, President Maduro was just moments, seconds maybe, from the safety of a fortified room. He actually reached the door, but the operators were on him so fast, he never even had a chance to close it. And in that split second, right there, the main goal of the entire raid was achieved. Just like that. But, the operation didn't just end with the capture. Not by a long shot. The political fallout back in Washington and the message this whole thing sent to the rest of the world, well, that was all just getting started. So back in the US, the secrecy of this mission just ignited a political firestorm. The administration's justification was pretty blunt. A leak, they said, would have been fatal for the mission. But on the other side, you had congressional leaders who were absolutely furious, framing it as a reckless, dangerous, unilateral action. It's really that classic tug of war, isn't it? Operational security on one side and democratic accountability on the other.
And here's what makes this so different, what really elevates it beyond your typical coup or regime change operation. The reported destination wasn't exile somewhere. It was the United States. The whole point, according to the source, was to bring a sitting head of state onto American soil to face criminal charges. I mean, that's a move with almost zero modern precedent. So if you look beyond the immediate fallout, the report really forces you to think about the long-term precedent here. What happens to the so-called rules of international relations when a country takes an action like this? What kind of new doors does this open up?
The core takeaway, at least according to the analysis in the report, is that this whole operation was designed to be a message, a very loud, very clear demonstration of American power. It was meant to show a willingness to act completely unilaterally, to just ignore borders, diplomacy, and international norms whenever its national interests are considered to be at stake.
And that brings us to the final, really provocative question this report leaves us with. Is an event like this the beginning of a whole new world order, one where national leaders are no longer safe even within their own borders? Or is it an incredibly dangerous precedent that just invites more global instability? For now, that's a question with no easy answer. And really, only time will tell.